Hey guys, tonight we start with something strange, no, deeply unsettling. You're brushing your teeth, staring at yourself in the mirror. You notice something in your eyes, something tired. But wait, what exactly are you seeing? The cells in your skin are not the same ones you had a year ago. Your bones regenerate. Your memories shift subtly. And yet, you call that face me. But here's the mind bender. If you replaced every single part of a ship, one plank at a time, until not a single original part remains, is it still the same ship? That's the Ship of Theseus, a puzzle that's been gnawing at philosophers for over 2,000 years. And tonight, it's gnawing at you. Imagine this. You've got a wooden boat. Every year, you replace a damaged board with a new one. After decades, none of the original planks are left. Is it still your boat? Now let's go further. Suppose someone collected the old discarded pieces and rebuilt the exact same ship. Which one is the real ship? That's not a boat anymore. That's you. Your brain rewires. Your molecules shift. Even your memories, the building blocks of selfhood, are shockingly unreliable. Studies show that eyewitnesses remember things that never happened, and your earliest childhood memories? Many are stitched together from photos, not experiences. Here's the real kicker: you think you're a stable, continuous self because your brain needs that illusion to function. But that self? It's a moving target, a collage of moments, a constantly rewritten story. There's a real-world twist to all this. In 2007, a woman named HM underwent brain surgery that erased her ability to form new memories. Every moment was a reset. She couldn't track the passage of time. To her, she was always the same now. And yet her body aged, habits shifted, language evolved. So, who was she? Or maybe who is she now? Here's something weird to chew on before bed. If every memory you have could be replaced tomorrow, would you still be you? Or just the same name with different contents? And now a philosophical gut punch. What if your sense of self is more like a flame than a statue? Constantly changing, but held together by motion and structure? What if you've never been you, just a story pretending to be solid? So before you get too comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. Let me know in the comments. What's the first thing you ever remember? Where does your story start? Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. ... You step forward from the mirror, but something feels off. You're not quite sure if the one who stared back was the same you. You're sitting at a quiet diner. Rain taps softly on the window. The smell of old coffee and fried eggs fills the air. You've ordered something simple, maybe pancakes. You look up and see someone walk in. They're wearing your face, but older or younger. They sit down across from you. Neither of you speaks. You know without knowing how that this is you from another time. Maybe from the future or the past. Either way, you feel the paradox tighten around your throat like a noose. Let's rewind. The grandfather paradox goes like this. If you traveled back in time and killed your grandfather before your parent was born, you would never exist to travel back and kill him. But if you never went back, your grandfather lives, and you do exist, so you could go back. And so on. A looping contradiction, an impossible knot in the fabric of logic. But here's the haunting twist. This isn't just science fiction. It's baked into our best theories of time. According to Einstein's relativity, time isn't a line. It's a four-dimensional block. Every moment past, present, and future exists simultaneously. The past doesn't disappear. The future is already there. So theoretically, if you could move through it, you could go visit your grandfather's youth. In 2000, physicist Ronald Mallet proposed a time machine based on rotating lasers and Einstein's equations. It wasn't fantasy. It used actual physics. He wanted to go back and see his dead father. But here's the trouble. If he succeeded and prevented his father's death, he might lose the very motivation to build the machine. And now we return to the diner. What if the version of you sitting across the table is here to stop you from doing something? What if they already did, and that's why you've been feeling this strange pull lately? A déjà vu that goes too deep. Can timelines fork? Could two contradictory versions of reality exist simultaneously? One where your grandfather died, and one where he didn't. Physicists like David Deutsch say yes. They propose something called the many worlds interpretation, where each choice splits the universe into branches. No contradiction. Just infinite versions of you. Dining alone, dining with yourself, never dining at all. But ask yourself this. If you met your future self today, would you trust them? Or would you think you've gone insane? The rain has stopped now. The other, you, finishes their pancakes, stands, drops a folded note on the table. When you open it, it just says, "Don't get on the train next Tuesday." You feel your heart skip. You weren't planning to. But now, maybe you will. You flick on the bathroom light. Midnight. The house is quiet. You splash cold water on your face and look up, then freeze. Your reflection doesn't move. It blinks 1 second late. It's subtle, but it's real. You stare harder, and now the question slips in like a shadow. What if the person in the mirror is not you, but one of you? Tonight, we slide from time travel into the stranger world of quantum identity, where every choice you make might split you in two, or three, or infinite. Here's how it begins. In quantum physics, particles don't behave like solid things. They exist in probabilities. Before being observed, an electron isn't in a place, it's in all places. A shimmering cloud of maybes. It's only when you look that it chooses a position. That's called superposition. But here's the disturbing bit. Some physicists argue that the particle doesn't choose at all. You do, and each possibility becomes real in a separate universe. This is the many worlds interpretation. It says, every time a quantum event occurs, every time you decide chocolate or vanilla, stay or leave, text or don't text the universe branches, there's now one you who stays and one you who goes. Let's go deeper. In 2019, researchers ran a quantum experiment called the Wigner's Friend test. It suggested that two observers could experience totally different realities and both be correct. Imagine opening a box and seeing a cat that's dead, but someone watching you sees a box that hasn't been opened. In their world, the cat is still alive. In yours, it's already gone. Now ask yourself, if reality can split, what about you? Are you one person living one life, or are you the observer, caught in one slice of a much larger, fractured existence? What if the mirror you is the one who made the opposite choice? What if their life went better? Here's a story for your nerves. A woman named Elise once told a podcast that she dreamt she was living an entirely different life, different house, husband, job. When she woke up, everything was off. Her kitchen had 4 mugs instead of 5. A chair had vanished, and her scar was gone. Psychologists called it false memory, but she swore she'd slipped into the wrong world. So maybe you are living one thread, but the real question is, are you the original? Or just a very convincing echo? You stare back at the mirror. Your reflection finally moves in sync. But for just a second, you thought. They smiled before you did. You wake up, heart racing. Your sheets are soaked. The dream was vivid, so real you still feel the breeze on your face, the laughter echoing in your ears. It was beautiful. And now it's gone. You sit up, but something's off. You don't remember how you fell asleep. You don't remember what day it is. For a moment, you wonder, what if this is the dream? Let me tell you a story. Over 2,000 years ago in ancient China, the philosopher Zhuangzi had a strange dream. In it, he was a butterfly fluttering, carefree, not a thought in the world. When he woke up, he didn't know if he had been Zhuangzi dreaming he was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming it was Zhuangzi. And that question has never been answered. You've probably felt it too, those dreams that seem more true than waking life. The ones with colors you don't recognize, people you've never met but somehow love, cities that feel like home, though they've never existed. What if they have? Modern neuroscience tells us that the brain doesn't just record reality, it builds it. When you're awake, it interprets signals from the outside world. When you're asleep, it uses memory, emotion, and logic to simulate reality from within. And sometimes, the simulation is indistinguishable. In 2018, a man in Mexico reported having a full 20-year dream while in a coma. He claimed to have gone to school, fallen in love, had children, even suffered a divorce. When he woke up, his life vanished in seconds. He was 27 again. But he mourned a wife and kids who never existed. So ask yourself, what makes this reality so trustworthy? If your memories could be fabricated, if your senses can be fooled, what separates waking from dreaming? Here's the paradox. Every time you sleep, you surrender reality. And every time you wake, you trust that this is the real world, just because it feels real. But what if reality isn't what's consistent? It's just what you return to the most. A whisper in your head says, "Wake up." You shake it off. You get out of bed. But something's not quite right. The floor feels too soft. The clock has no hands. And your phone background is someone you don't recognize, but you feel like you loved them once. Maybe Zhuangzi wasn't being poetic. Maybe he was trying to warn us. So tonight, when you close your eyes, don't just fall asleep. Listen, feel, ask yourself, who's the one dreaming now? You glance at the clock. It's 9:01 p.m. You blink, still 9:01. But didn't you just scroll through 10 minutes of videos? Didn't you drift away in thought, build entire futures in your head, then snap back? Why hasn't the minute changed? Tonight, we unravel one of the strangest ideas in metaphysics and physics alike. What if time doesn't flow forward? What if it doesn't flow at all? Let's begin with the twin paradox, a real prediction from Einstein's theory of special relativity. Picture this: two identical twins. One boards a spaceship and travels near the speed of light. The other stays on Earth. After what feels like 2 years to the traveler, she comes back and finds her twin has aged decades. Time, it turns out, is not absolute. It's relative. And your experience of time depends on your speed, your gravity, and your frame of reference. In 1971, this wasn't just a thought experiment. Scientists flew atomic clocks on commercial jets and found that the ones in motion actually ticked slower than the ones on Earth. Just a fraction of a second, but measurable, real. The universe doesn't have one clock. It has infinite, personal timelines. But here's where metaphysics crashes the party. If time can move differently for two people, does that mean there's a true timeline at all? Or are we all ghosts drifting sideways through a frozen 4D sculpture, each of us experiencing time but not moving in it? Some theories, like eternalism, suggest the past, present, and future are equally real. That the universe is like a block of marble, and we're just a glowing dot moving along a line we can't see. But how do you experience time? Sometimes it crawls. Sometimes it vanishes. 10 minutes of waiting feels like an hour. But a good conversation? Gone in a blink. So who's the liar, your mind or your watch? Here's a weird little story. A diver once lost track of time underwater. She came up thinking she'd been gone for 10 minutes. Her team's timer? Over 40. She remembered everything, but her body was shivering, exhausted. Something about her perception had broken. When asked what happened, she said, "It felt like I was watching myself from the side." Time didn't stop. She did. So ask yourself, is time something you walk through or something that walks through you? As the clock finally shifts to 9:02, you feel strange. Not older, not younger, just slightly behind where you thought you'd be. You walk into a party. It's warm. Laughter spills through the air like perfume. You recognize no one, but strangely, you feel like you've been here before. You walk past groups of people deep in conversation, and then you see yourself, not in a mirror, not in a photo, standing across the room, holding a drink, talking to someone, wearing a jacket you once owned but lost years ago. They see you too. And for one long moment, you both freeze like mirrors locked in a stare. Tonight, you meet one of the strangest metaphysical puzzles, the fission paradox. It asks a question even stranger than what am I? It asks, what if there were two of me and both were me? Here's the setup. Imagine your brain can be split safely into two hemispheres. Each half is placed into a cloned body identical, fully functional. They both wake up. They both remember your childhood, your dreams, your favorite cereal, and that one time you cried during a Pixar movie and told no one. So, which one is you? This was no mere fantasy for philosopher Derek Parfit. He argued that if personal identity can split, then identity isn't what matters. What matters is psychological continuity overlap, not ownership. You don't stop being you when you duplicate, but you stop being the only you. Here's a real-world echo. Patients with split brain surgery, where the two hemispheres are severed, can behave as if they have two centers of consciousness. One hand buttons the shirt, the other unbuttons it. One writes yes, the other writes no. They seem to disagree inside one head. So imagine two people, both you, attending the same party. Same memories, same intentions. They go home to different places. They live new lives. You go on. But which one is really you? Here's the uncomfortable truth Parfit reached. Maybe that question doesn't matter. Maybe being you is not about a single thread, but a pattern. A flow of experience that can continue, split, or fade without breaking. We cling so hard to being one person. But what if you're more like a song being remixed in two different speakers? Here's something softer to drift on. You walk up to the other you. They smile. You both laugh at the absurdity of it. Then, without speaking, you walk outside into the night, each in a different direction. And you realize you're still whole, even divided. You're still you, even if you're not alone in that. The music from the party fades behind you. The sky looks heavier now, deeper, as if it might fall if you stare too long. And maybe that's okay. You wake up in the dark, no mirror, no clock, no noise. Just the soft pressure of your body against the sheets. You move your hand in front of your face, but without light, there's no confirmation it's there. You know it's yours. You feel it move, but you can't see it. And for a flicker of a second, you ask, how do I know I'm me if I can't observe myself? Tonight's paradox isn't cosmic. It's intimate. We dive into the strange impossibility of fully knowing yourself, because the one who is doing the knowing is also the thing being known. Here's the setup. You try to catch your own eyes, not in the mirror, but inside, in thought, in awareness. But just like your eyes can never look at themselves directly, your mind can never fully observe itself without folding into itself. It's like trying to touch your fingertip with the same fingertip. The philosopher Douglas Hofstadter called this a strange loop, a system that contains a representation of itself, inside itself, in an endless recursion. You know you're thinking. But who knows that you're thinking? The one who thinks. But who is that? And around we go. In 1960, neuroscientist Roger Sperry studied patients with split brain surgery again. When the two hemispheres were asked separate questions, each seemed to act as a distinct person with separate awareness, goals, even preferences. One hand might draw a star, the other might erase it. They were one person, yet two observers. So, which one was you? Were you both? Or was one the true self, and the other just an echo? Here's a little story. A man named Luca practiced deep meditation for years. One day, he claimed he saw his thoughts before they formed. He said, "There was a moment when I realized I wasn't thinking my thoughts. I was watching someone else think them. But that someone else ... was me." It broke him. For days, he couldn't tell if he was the observer or the actor. Here's the paradox. Your self-awareness is built from layers of watching. But when you try to trace the root, the very first eye, there's nothing there but the act of observation itself. Like a camera filming itself, until you realize there's no original, just reflections of reflections. So tonight, as you lie in bed and feel your breath move through your chest, try this. Ask, who is noticing the breath? And then who is noticing that I noticed? But be gentle. You might not like where that question goes. You're immortal, not metaphorically, literally. You cannot die, cannot age, cannot sleep. At first, it's thrilling. Eternal time, unlimited possibilities. But after a few centuries, you start to notice something unsettling. You're always stuck in the now, and now never ends. That's the setup for tonight's paradox, built loosely on a strange cousin of Zeno's paradoxes. If time is infinitely divisible, can you ever move forward? Let's say you decide to get up and walk across the room. To do so, you must first cross half the distance, then half of what's left, then half of that, and on and on. Mathematically, you'll never arrive. Just an infinite chain of halfway points. Zeno's original paradox was about motion, but tonight we're turning it inward, toward consciousness. If every moment of thought requires a mental transition from one instant to the next, and if those instants are infinitely divisible, then how do you ever experience anything at all? Are you simply trapped, forever passing through a frozen sequence of mental snapshots with no real flow? In 2007, researchers used EEG readings to test how the brain processes continuous stimuli. Strangely, they found a delay about 80 milliseconds between a visual event and your awareness of it. You never live in the present. You live in the just after. Your entire life is a lag. One philosopher, Barry Dayton, describes consciousness not as a river, but as a flickering light, creating the illusion of flow by jumping between flashes. So if your mind is a strobe light, what connects the frames? Now picture this. A man named Milo dies and is uploaded into a simulated reality. In this digital world, time is slowed to a crawl. He thinks one thought every hour. He's immortal. But he can't speed anything up. He just waits for the next flicker of experience. Each moment, perfectly still. He says, "I can't die, but I can't move either. It's like watching paint dry. Forever." This is the trap. Immortality sounds like freedom. But without motion, change, or death, you're not alive. You're just aware. And what if we're already in that state? If each conscious moment is just a still frame, and the flow of life is the illusion your brain plays to comfort you, then maybe immortality is already here. And it's not heaven. It's a mirror you can never look away from. You wake up in a field, no ID, no memory, Just a notebook clutched in your hand. You flip it open. The first line reads, "You wrote this yesterday. Trust no one." That's it. No other clues. But here's the thing. You don't remember writing it, and yet, the handwriting is undeniably yours. That's the paradox we're diving into tonight. A metaphysical loop, often called the bootstrap paradox. It's not about time travel exactly. It's about memory, origin, and causality collapsing in on itself. Here's how it usually goes. Someone receives an idea or an object, say, a book or an invention from the future. They replicate it, pass it along, and it eventually travels back in time to become the original object again. But then, who created it? Where did the first version come from? In our case, you have the notebook. You wrote it, but only because you found it first. The memory of writing, it is fabricated by the fact that it already existed. It's a memory that remembers itself. Now apply this to a real-world case. In 1955, a man named Jack Frost died suddenly of a heart attack. Months later, his best friend received an email from Jack's account. It contained private jokes only Jack would have known. To this day, no one's explained it. If the sender was Jack, then the message came from the past into the present. But if someone else sent it, how did they know those secrets? This is where memory and metaphysics blur. Philosopher Henry Bergson believed that memory isn't stored in the brain, but in time itself. He argued that every moment you experience leaves a mark, not on neurons, but on the fabric of reality. Like echoes. And sometimes you tap into them by accident. So here's the question. If you remember something vividly, but it never happened, is it a lie or a future truth sneaking in? Some theories in quantum cognition suggest your brain doesn't store memories. It reconstructs them probabilistically, like a waveform collapsing when observed. That means your past is not fixed. It's re-rendered every time you remember it. You are not remembering who you were. You are becoming whoever the memory allows you to be. So maybe you did write the notebook, just not yet. Maybe you'll write it tomorrow, because today you read it. And so you loop forever in a story with no author, a memory with no origin. You stand in front of a mirror. The light is dim. Your reflection stares back, not mimicking you, but watching you. Not in sync, not quite you. And for a moment, you're not sure who copied who. Here's the setup. A reflection is supposed to be passive, right? It's just you, flipped. But what if the mirror was active? What if it needed you only as a suggestion before taking on a life of its own? This is the metaphysical problem of reversed identity when the representation becomes more real than the original. Consider this strange event. In 2013, a Japanese art exhibit featured a camera-equipped mirror that used AI to learn the subject's expressions and recreate them a moment before the subject actually made them. So when people smiled, their reflections smiled first. Cue mass confusion and a wave of existential nausea. And here's the twist. Your brain loves this. It treats the reflection as a twin, even when it acts out of order. Why? Because the brain isn't trying to model truth, it's modeling continuity. In metaphysics, this leads to a troubling question. If the copy of you acts independently, has intentions, errors, or even free will, is it still a copy? Now think about how we live today. Your online avatar, your Instagram archive, your AI-enhanced photos, they outlast you. You die, but the digital mirror goes on reflecting. This idea is at the heart of Jean Baudrillard's simulacra, when copies no longer need originals. They become ghosts of the real, and that's where identity starts to unravel. You begin to trust your selfie more than your skin. You say, "That doesn't look like me," not because the mirror lies, but because you've grown to believe your filtered self is you. Here's a fun, creepy fact. There's a condition called Capgras delusion, where people believe their loved ones have been replaced by exact copies. They look the same, talk the same, but something's off, and the brain whispers, "That's not them." But what if we all have that, quietly, subtly, not about others, but about ourselves? Maybe that's why you hesitate sometimes when looking in the mirror, like the reflection might blink before you do, or worse, keep staring after you've turned away. So tonight, the question is this: is your reflection the echo of yourself or the birthplace of a new you? Tonight, you don't fall asleep. You fall inward into that pulsing darkness behind your eyes. And as dreams wash over you like warm static, something eerie slips into awareness. You're not the one dreaming. The dream is dreaming you. It sounds poetic, sure, but it's one of the most unsettling paradoxes in metaphysics, where the direction of cause and identity flips, and what you think is you might just be a side effect. Let's rewind. In 2001, neuroscientist Olaf Blank conducted experiments where electrical stimulation to a small area in the brain caused people to suddenly see themselves outside their bodies. Not imagine it, experience it. They described floating above, watching themselves as if they were the ghost. What does that mean? It suggests that the self might just be a projection, something your brain manufactures on the fly to stabilize experience, like a cursor on a screen. You aren't inside your body, you're simply rendered there. But what's doing the rendering? Some philosophers, like Thomas Metzinger, argue that the self doesn't exist at all. It's a hallucination your brain needs to keep you functioning. And in that hallucination, thoughts come from somewhere, not from you, but through you. Have you ever tried to stop thinking? It's impossible. Thoughts appear on their own, whispering, mocking, remembering things you didn't want to remember. So what if you're not thinking thoughts? What if thoughts are thinking you into being? In Hindu philosophy, there's a striking metaphor. The universe is Brahman dreaming all of reality, including you, into existence. You are part of the dream, not the dreamer. And here's a curious detail. In 2020, researchers at Yale found brainwave patterns in comatose patients that mimicked dreaming even though there was no sign of consciousness. The body had shut down, but something inside was still simulating a self. That's the terrifying beauty of it. You might be an echo of awareness, a ripple in a mind far larger than your own. So here's your metaphysical question tonight. What if waking up means realizing you were never truly you to begin with? You glance at the clock, 2:13 a.m. You're tired, but can't look away. Because deep down, you know, something's wrong with time. Not just it feels fast, or where did the day go? I mean fundamentally wrong. Like the clock is lying. And maybe it is. Physicists like Carlo Rovelli and Julian Barber have argued that time isn't a flowing river. It's not a current you're swept along. It's not even real. They suggest that time is an illusion, an emergent property of our limited perception. You see change, and your brain stitches it together as a narrative. But reality? Reality might be a giant block where every moment, past to future, already exists, like a movie reel. You're just watching frame 12,431 right now. But all the other frames? They never left. They never arrived. They just are. This isn't just fancy physics, eerily personal. In 1952, Einstein wrote to the family of a recently deceased friend, Michel Bessel. Now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That means nothing. People like us know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Even death, in this view, doesn't happen. You're not going through time. You are time, experienced from one angle. That's where metaphysics steps in. If every moment is already there, who's the you that's moving? And stranger still, Your brain doesn't actually perceive time continuously. It samples reality in chunks, tiny cinematic flashes. It fills in the blanks like a magician, pulling rabbits out of hats. Now here's the academic thorn in your mind. If time is just an illusion tied to our limited consciousness, then how can change be real? How can growth or regret or choice? Are you really making decisions? Or just following a script that feels like freedom? And here's a final weird detail. In 2008, neuroscientists discovered that your brain decides what to do up to 10 seconds before you become aware of choosing. That means you are watching yourself after the decision's already made. So, what does that make you? An actor or an audience? Now go ahead, try not to think about time bending in on itself next time you set your alarm. You step outside and look up. Stars blink, cold and ancient. You feel small, but what if that's the biggest lie ever told? What if you're not in the universe? What if the universe is in you? Not metaphorically, literally. In 2016, neuroscientists published a study comparing the neural networks of the human brain with the structure of the observable universe. And guess what? They found stunning similarities, down to the fractal patterns and energy distributions. Your brain has about 86 billion neurons. The cosmos has roughly 100 billion galaxies. Scale the image, and they look hauntingly alike. Coincidence? Or is it possible that what we call mind is not locked in a skull, but stretched across space-time? Here's where metaphysics gets deliciously strange. According to the philosophy of panpsychism, consciousness isn't a byproduct of brains. It's a fundamental property of the universe, like gravity, like charge. Meaning, the atoms in your chair might have a whisper of awareness. The galaxy? A kind of meta-consciousness we can't even fathom. You are the universe looking at itself, literally. And this isn't just poetic. It has consequences. Think of Advaita Vedanta, the non-dual tradition of Hindu thought. They say Atman is Brahman, the self is the cosmos. Not because it's a nice spiritual idea, but because direct experience and meditation shows it. Here's a true event. In 1983, astronaut Story Musgrave was working outside the Challenger shuttle. He paused and stared into the black abyss, and suddenly he felt it, that he was space. Not in it, not observing it. He was part of it, inseparable. He described it as a symphony in motion, a ballet of being. So here's the metaphysical dagger to twist. If your consciousness is the universe observing itself, then who are you when you stop observing? Is the world still there? Or do you collapse it with every blink? And what about dreams? When you sleep, whole universes appear vast, detailed, emotional. In seconds, where do they come from? Are they practice realities? Simulations run by the same engine that renders this one. So next time you stare into the mirror, ask, are you looking at a person or at a node of consciousness in the universal mind? Because the truth might be this: you're not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean, pretending to be a drop. You're lying in bed, lights off, one hand on your chest, feeling the quiet thump of your heart. You think, am I this body? But then, something inside pushes further. Am I this mind? This, friend, is the soul problem. If consciousness is not just brain activity, where does it live when the neurons go dark? Let's play a little mind game. Suppose we build a perfect clone of you. Same memories, same thoughts, same favorite pizza topping. We zap the original you, the real you, into oblivion, and your clone wakes up. They swear they're you, but are you still alive? Some philosophers like Derek Parfit say yes and no. That identity is an illusion made of continuity, not a solid core. You're more like a river than a rock. But others? They argue that something essential, call it the soul, the self, the I, can't be cloned, copied, or cut. And here's the kicker. No one can agree on whether it survives death. Now enter dualism, Descartes' classic idea. You are a mind, separate from the body. The body is meat. You are not. But how do they interact? How does an invisible, formless thing like you tell your fingers to type, your legs to walk, your mouth to say, "I love you"? No one knows. And yet, here's a real story to twist the blade. In 2014, a woman named Pam Reynolds was undergoing a rare brain surgery. They shut her brain down, no electrical activity, no heartbeat, clinically dead. But when she came back, she described in vivid detail what the doctors were doing while she was out. Instruments, conversations, even jokes. So ... what was observing? The brain was off, the senses down. Yet something was still awake, even if you're skeptical. Good. That's what metaphysics demands. But the question still floats. What happens to you when the lights go out? Does consciousness dissolve like smoke? Or does it slip through the cracks and wake up ... somewhere else? And if it does, how would you even know? You could be living your 10th life with no memory of the last 9. Just a hunch that you've been here before. A smell. A face you think you know. A place that feels like home even though you've never seen it. Maybe déjà vu is the soul whispering. We've danced this song before. Now that you've asked the question, you can never unask it. You step into a crowded train station. People rush by, each immersed in their own playlist, their own thoughts. To them, this is reality, concrete, loud, sweaty, unquestioned. But what if it's all a trick? The final paradox is perhaps the most destabilizing. What if reality only exists because we agree it does? You're not alone in asking. Philosophers like George Berkeley insisted, esse est percipi, to be is to be perceived. If no one sees the tree fall, not only does it make no sound, maybe it doesn't even exist. Your entire world may depend on collective agreement. This is the consensus reality problem. Think about it. Money only works because we all pretend it does. Borders exist because we draw them. Time is real because we wear watches. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo conducted the infamous Stanford prison experiment. Students, normal, rational young people, began acting like sadistic guards and submissive prisoners, simply because someone told them who they were. They accepted the shared fiction, and fiction became fact. Now imagine society itself as a massive stage play. Each person has a role: student, parent, enemy, stranger. If we all stopped playing, would the play vanish? Metaphysics takes this idea even further. What if matter itself is the illusion? In quantum physics, particles behave differently when observed. Electrons don't exist in a specific place unless we look. Reality, it seems, waits for our attention to become real. So what does that say about the world around you right now? Is your room here because you remember it? Do your friends exist because you expect them to reply? Is this story even happening? Or is your mind just feeding itself content in a dream? Let's go one step stranger. What if we are all part of the same consciousness, pretending to be different people? You reading this, me writing it. All masks worn by the same actor. You felt it before. In a dream too lucid. In a moment of overwhelming awe, staring at the stars. That eerie shiver of "I've been here before." Maybe you have. Maybe you are just a fragment of something vaster playing a game of hide and seek with itself. And here's the most dangerous idea of all. If reality is a shared illusion, you can change it. Not with magic, but with intention, with language, with belief. Every time you ask a question like, "Is this really me?" Or "Why does this feel like a memory?" you're cracking the spell. That's the real power of metaphysics. Not answers, but questions that won't let you go. So now, turn down the lights. Let your breath slow. Maybe you're not where you think you are. Maybe you never were. But maybe, just maybe, you're finally beginning to remember.